Welcome to video 7 of Gamer to Game Developer Series 1, and in this video we'll be implementing respawn and player identity. So our objectives for this video are to first allow the player to respawn back into the game when they've been destroyed. Then we'll give the player a crosshair so that we can finally aim, and then we'll set up a stat display. This will be the first element in our HUD, and it'll show the health bar on the screen. And then finally, we'll set up player labels with name and health. So this will be a health bar and a name that appears over each player in our game. So I'll just go over briefly how our player respawn will work. And what we'll do is to edit our spawn script and our health and damage script. So when the player is destroyed, our spawn script will now show a respawn button in the middle of the screen. And the player can then just click on this button and they'll be respawned back into the game, into the same team that they were on. And our health and damage script will simply edit that to tell the spawn script that the player has been destroyed. So it'll be pretty simple. So our first step will be to edit the spawn script. We jump over to Unity and we open up the spawn script. And we'll make a few changes to the script. We're going to add a new boolean, a new variable called I am destroyed, and we'll set it to false. And this variable we're going to use to determine whether the player has been destroyed or not. So the health and damage script will access this script and set that boolean to true if the player is destroyed. And the code that we need to edit is in the join team window function. At the moment, what you see in the join team window is that when this function is run by the onGUI, a join red team button will appear and a join blue team button will appear. So what we're going to do is we'll just edit it so that these buttons will only appear if the player has just connected to the server. So these buttons will only appear when the player has just connected to the server. Other than that, then we'll put in another condition that if the player is destroyed, then we'll show another button called respawn. So let's start implementing that. So here, I'll add in a new variable and the comment for it will be used in determining whether the player is destroyed. So used in determining whether the player is destroyed. And this variable is public bool I am destroyed, and set it to false. Now within our join team window function, we'll now only allow these buttons to show when the player has just connected to the server. So if just connected to server is true, then we'll put all of this inside that. So let's indent it. I just hit tab there to indent. Let's enclose the block of code with the curly brackets. Okay. Now we'll do a new we'll add a new, if statement into this join team window function. So I'll make some space down here and I'll write the comment. So we allow the player to respawn if they were destroyed. So allow the player to respawn if they were destroyed. And so the check is here, if I am destroyed is true, then we show the respawn button. So if GUI layout dot button, and the text of the button will be respawn, then, and it'll also have a height of double the label height, which I have, or the button height, sorry, which is 40. So we'll have a button that's got 80 pixels in height, just so it looks big and obvious on the screen. GUI layout dot height is label height. Sorry, I keep thinking label. It's button height times 2. So it'll be 80 pixels. And I just close that if statement off, and within it, so if the player clicks on this respawn button, then we'll do the following check. So if am I on the red team is true, then we'll simply spawn red team player. So we just run that function, opening, closing brackets. And then the next one is, if I am on the blue team, if I on the blue team is true, then we spawn a blue team player. So spawn blue team player. And finally, after that one of those two things have been executed, we need to set I am destroyed is false, so that the button doesn't keep showing on the screen. And that will actually work. We've actually set up our respawn, but there's one little detail that we just have to add in, and that is that when the player is destroyed, their cursor won't unlock, it'll stay locked. So we're just going to add a little bit of code here that will cause the cursor to unlock. So it'll be in the onGUI function itself. So where it says if just connected to server is true, well, now we need to show the join team window function. We need to show that respawn button even when the player is destroyed. So we need to add that new condition. So or am I destroyed, I am destroyed is true. And inside that, so I had actually, what I said earlier just a moment ago is not completely correct. We hadn't finished there, because if we had just left it at that code, we wouldn't be able to respawn, because the button would never show because it's not being told to do so in onGUI. We just needed to add a little bit more, the I am destroyed condition, and then it'll show the button. So I'll put there screen dot lock cursor is false. So now the player will, when they're destroyed, they'll be able to actually click on the respawn button. So I'll say what we've done so far. I'll just go over briefly what we did. So we added a new variable, I am destroyed. It's a boolean. This boolean is accessed by the health and damage script, and when the player is destroyed, the health and damage script will set this boolean to true. Then in our join team window function, we edited that. So the onGUI function will draw the contents of this join team window, and in it we've enclosed the join red team button and the join blue team button inside if just connected to server is true. So that way these two buttons will only appear when the player has just connected to the game and they're choosing a team for the first time. After that, whenever they're destroyed, then another button will instead this button will appear, a respawn button, and it'll appear in the middle of the screen based on the onGUI function. And that button will simply, when they click it, they'll respawn back to the team they belong to. And then in our onGUI function, we simply edited it so that when the player is destroyed, this join team window function will also run. It'll also be displayed then as well. So just added another condition there. And we also unlock the cursor so that the player can actually click on the button. So with the spawn script edited, we can move on to editing our health and damage script. So we've put in the structure for respawning the player when they're destroyed, but now we need to tell the script when the player is destroyed, so then they can actually respawn. So we'll move on to the next step. We're on to step 2 of objective 1, which is to edit the health and damage script. We open up the health and damage script, jump over to it, and we'll just make small changes to the script. So inside the update function, we scroll down to the bit where each player is responsible for destroying themselves. So if my health is less than or equal to 0 and network view.isMine is true, what we're going to do inside this little block here is to add a bit of code before the player starts to destroy themselves. And this bit, what it'll do is to access the spawn script and set the boolean I am destroyed to true. So to do that, we first need to access we need to find the spawn manager game object and then access the spawn script on that game object. So I'll write here the comment, access the spawn script and set the I am destroyed boolean to true. So I'll write here access the spawn script and set the I am destroyed bool to true, so that this player can respawn, And as you can remember, destruction of the player only happens where the player whose health has fallen below 0, then it is our player on our game that will initiate the destruction of the player. So in that case, it is our spawn script that's getting accessed. So I'll write here game object, spawn manager is what I'll call this variable here, and is equal to game object dot find. And what do we need to find? We need to find the spawn manager. And once we've found it, spawn script, and I'll just call in write in small the name of the variable spawn script is equal to spawn manager dot get component and the component to get is spawn script. Alright, and now within the spawn script we need to access that boolean. So spawn script dot I am destroyed is true, and we can save that. So now when the player is destroyed, the spawn script should get access. Now at the top of the code, I should edit this now. I should say this script, so I can write here now, this script accesses the spawn script to inform the player that they've been destroyed. And we'll save that, and we can do the same for the spawn script. So inside its summary, we'll write here, this script is accessed by the health and damage script. And I'll just leave it at that. This script is accessed by the health and damage script. And just save that. So now we can actually test it out back in Unity. We'll have 3 copies of the game open, including our editor. And we'll just build and run, and then launch another copy of the game as well. And then we'll have a blue team player and a red team player, and we'll use one to destroy the other. I'll use one of the copies. I'll set up a server. I think this time I'll use the editor as a player. Let's connect. And I'll destroy the player in the editor. So that way if there are errors, we'll see them appear. And in our third copy of the game, I'll connect and have a blue team player. So I'll run up to the red team player. And then fire away. Fire. Okay, so the red team player has been destroyed. So let's return to the game, and we can see that a button has appeared in the middle of the screen. It's called respawn. So let's click it. And yes, we've been respawned right back in the very same spawn point. So let's destroy the blue player. Fire away. Blue player has been destroyed. Let's jump over to their window. And yes, they've been destroyed. So let's click the respawn button. So we hit it, and yes, our blue player has been respawned into the game. And yes, that's them right there. So our respawn system is working. It was quite simple to implement. So now we can move on to our next objective. I'll just shut all these down, exit. Our next objective, which is to implement our player crosshair to make aiming easier. In Objective 2, we'll implement the player crosshair, and what we'll do is to create a simple crosshair texture, that's an X, and then we'll write a new script called crosshair, and this script will simply show that crosshair in the middle of the screen. So it'll be pretty simple. So our first step will be to actually create that crosshair texture. I've opened up the GIMP, and what we'll do is create a new texture. We'll change the size to 256 by 256. Okay. And we'll clear the background, so we'll make it transparent. So we'll go Layer, Transparency, add Alpha Channel, then Edit, Clear. And then we're going to add some guides. So what we're going to do is we are going to paint this X brush into the middle of our texture. So to be sure where the middle is, we'll put in some guides. So we go over to Image, Guides, and New Guide by percent. So we'll add in a horizontal guide at 50%. So I'll click OK. And I'll add another guide. And this time, I'll change it to vertical. Alright, and that is the middle of our texture. So now we select the biggest X brush there, and I'd like our crosshair to be red in color. So I'll change this 4 color here, and I'll change it to a deep red. So I'll zoom in a bit. So image, view, zoom, make it around 400%. Alright. So we can position it as accurately as possible. And that is it. That's the middle. So I'll just paint it there. You can hit it more than once to make it deeper in color. So view, zoom, back out to 100%. Alright. So let's have a look. Did I hit it in the center? Yes, I did. So I can zoom back out, and I'll just save this texture. So File, Save As. I'll save it in my Assets, Textures, and call this one crosshair.png. So save, and we can jump back to Unity, and we should have it there. So let's go over to our textures, and we find it at the bottom there, and our crosshair texture has been made. So the next thing now is to write our crosshair script to actually draw that texture in the middle of the screen. So that'll be our next step. Step 2 of Objective 2 is to create the crosshair script. We create a new script. So a new C# script, call it crosshair. Open it up. And in the opening summary, I'll type So this script is attached to the player. So this script is attached to the player and causes a crosshair to be drawn in the center of the screen. So to be drawn in the center of the screen. And for our variables, I'll just copy the variable start and end bit. And our variables are public texture crosshair text. So this will be visible in the inspector, and we'll actually assign our texture, our crosshair texture, to this variable. And this is what we'll be drawing in the center of the screen. So private float crosshair dimension is equal to 256. So that was the height and width we gave to our crosshair texture. And private float half crosshair width, which is equal to 128. And in our start function, we'll simply put in if network view.isMine. This time, instead of true, we'll say false. If it's false, then disable the script. So enabled is equal to false. And now in our onGUI function, so we'll create a new function here, void onGUI, and within it we'll have the comment display the crosshair in the center of the screen while the cursor is locked. So we won't have the crosshair appear when the player is trying to look at a menu. So display the crosshair in the center of the screen while the cursor is locked. So we'll have here if screen.lockCursor is true, then we'll do the following. GUI.drawTexture new rect screen.width divided by 2 minus half crosshair width. So that's the left position of our texture. So this GUI.drawTexture is going to, we'll assign it at the end of it, we'll assign the texture that'll be drawn, but we're now just defining the left position of where that texture will be drawn, and we want it to appear in the middle of the screen. So by doing this, it'll appear in the middle of the screen. So and then I'll just drop over to the next line. So now for the top, so screen.height divided by 2 minus half crosshair width. Then we'll define the width, and the width is simply the crosshair dimension. So crosshair dimension, and the height is the same as well, crosshair dimension. And we can close that. So that is the rect. And now it's asking for the texture itself. So that texture is crosshair text. And we can close that. And that is it for this script. So we can delete the update function there. We don't need it. So the script will continuously run so long as the cursor is locked, and will continuously draw the crosshair texture in the middle of the screen. So we'll save our script and we'll jump over to Unity and attach this script to both players. So we go to our player blue and we go to component scripts and attach the crosshair script. And we also need to attach the texture. So that's our texture right there, the crosshair texture. And we do the same for the red player. Component, scripts, crosshair. And once again, attach that crosshair texture. Okay, so now we can build and run the game. So File, Build and Run. Doesn't matter which one I set up as the server, so I'll just start my own server and connect, join as a red team player, and there we go, our crosshair is there. Now I guess the best way to know if we're hitting is to try and aim at an enemy player and shoot at them. I guess that would be the easiest way to tell if our crosshair is working. So I'll actually launch another copy of the game. So I have now another copy open. I'll connect as a blue team player. And let's see, how good is my aiming? I shoot, and shoot. And it looks like we're hitting. Yeah, we hit. So let's say that our crosshair does appear to be working. It does actually appear to hit. It's probably in the center. Let's see if we're still able to hit. Yes, we are. So our crosshair is positioned correctly and it's in the center of the screen. So that's great. We can move on to the next objective, which is to implement the first bit in our HUD. Well, it's not really a heads-up display, but it's the first element in it, and that'll be the health bar of our player. Objective 3 is to implement the stat display, and this will be a box that's drawn to the lower right of the crosshair, and in this box we'll have the health bar and the health in numbers as well. Later on we'll have energy and resource, but for now we'll just implement health. And to do that, our StatDisplay script, which is drawing all this, will access the health and damage script to figure out how much health the player has in order to figure out how long that health bar should be. So our first step will be to actually create the health bar texture. We go back to the GIMP, create a new texture, and this time it's 128 by 16, so it's a bar. Okay, and we'll remove the background and make it transparent. So layer, transparency, add alpha channel, and then edit clear to remove that background. So the next thing that we need to do is to pick our colors. We'll set up a forecolor and a background color because we're going to use the gradient tool to make a health bar that looks, well, it has a varying green color. So for our forecolor, we'll choose a bright green. So something about there will be good. That's our forecolor. For our background color, we'll choose that same one that we just made and pick a darker. Just slide it till it's a darker green and OK. Then next we'll pick the gradient tool and change the opacity to 80%. And then we can just apply it. So from left to right, just apply. And what we have is a health bar texture, where on the left side it's a lighter color, and it gets darker as it progresses towards the right side. So I'll save that. So File, Save As, and back in our folder, go to Assets, Textures, and inside this, I'll name the file healthbar.png. Healthbar.png. And just save that. Okay, so now we can jump back to Unity and check that it's there. And it is at the bottom. So we can move on to our next step, which is to write that StatDisplay script. So we're on to step 2 of objective 3, which is to write the StatDisplay script. We create a new script now. So a new C# script called StatDisplay. And we open this up in MonoDevelop. And in summary, we will write. So this script is attached to the player. This script is attached to the player and allows the player to see a box with their current health. So it allows the player to see a box with their health, with their current health, to the lower right of the crosshair. To the lower right of the crosshair. And we'll also write there that this script accesses the health and damage script. So this script accesses the health and damage script. And while we're at it, since we're writing there, we'll go back to the health and damage script and just say that this script is accessed by the StatDisplay script. And just save that. So jump back to the StatDisplay script, and we'll start writing out our variables. So as usual, copy the variable start and end. And our first variable will be the texture itself. So I'll write the comment. The health bar texture is attached to this in the inspector, is attached to this in the inspector. And that variable is public texture health text. So health text. Okay, our next one. So the comment here is that these are used in calculating and displaying the health. So these are used in calculating and displaying the health. So private float health, private int health for display. Okay, and then our next set of variables. So we'll write the comment. These are used in defining the StatDisplay box. So these are used in defining the StatDisplay box. So private int box width is equal to 160. Private int box height is equal to 85. Private int label height is equal to 20. Private int, so private int label width is equal to 35. Private int padding is equal to 10. Private int gap is equal to 120. I'll scroll down, I'll make some space down here. Private float health bar length private int health bar height is equal to 15, and then private GUI style, and I'll call it health style is the name of this type, of this variable, sorry. Health style is equal to a new GUI style and the open close round brackets. And you'll see what I'll do with this GUI style in a moment. You can use it to make your text, change the color of the text. You can use it to make it, bold, or make it allow for word wrapping and that sort of thing. So I'll now add another comment, which is a quick reference to the health and damage script. So a quick reference to the health and damage script. So private health and damage HD script. Okay, that's our variables. So we'll save what we've done so far. And now in our start function, if network view.isMine is true, then we'll have here access the health and damage script. So access health and damage script. And we'll have here transform, trigger transform. So you remember that our health and damage script is attached to the trigger game object on our players. So we first need to find the child object, which is call trigger. And then once we've found it, then we access the health and damage script on that child game object. So transform, trigger transform. Trigger transform is just what I'm calling it, is equal to transform dot find child trigger. And then HD script is equal to trigger transform dot get component and the component to get is health and damage script. So the health and damage script. So all we're doing is just finding the child game object and just setting up a reference to the script attached to it. So later on we'll access our HD script to determine the amount of health, to determine the player's current health, and using that we'll determine how long that health bar should be. Alright, and we'll also, while we're here, we'll set the GUI style. So set the GUI style. So health style dot normal dot text color is equal to color dot green. And so the font color will be green of the text, and next will be health style dot font style is equal to font style dot bold. Okay, and then outside of the if statement I'll have else enabled is equal to false. Alright, and I'll save what we've done so far. Now we'll go to our update function. And in our update function, the first thing that we're going to do is to access the health and damage script continuously. So access to retrieve, the player's health. Access the health and damage script continuously and retrieve the player's health, well, current health. So we'll simply say, so we had here this variable that we made, private float health, and we'll capture it inside this variable. We'll simply say that health is equal to hd script dot my health. And we've got the health now. Now I also want to display the health as a number. So just besides just calculating, we're going to calculate the length of the bar, the health bar. I also want to show that health as a number, like 99 or 100 or 50 or whatever. But the important thing is that number shouldn't have any decimal places on it. So health is a float, and what we need to do is to display it. So health for display, you see here, is an int. To display it as an int, an integer, and integers don't have decimal places. So we'll write here a comment. I also want to display health as numbers without any decimals. So health for display is equal to math f dot seal to int, and the variable to input is health. So we're going to round up the decimal point to, so if it was say 96.6, it would just be shown as 97. Alright, and then the next thing to do is to calculate how long that health bar should be. So I'll put in the comment, calculate how long the health bar should be. And the max length is 100, representing 100%. So representing 100%. Because later on, when we allow our player to change their stats, they could have more than 100 health points or less than. So the bar will always be 100 in length, and our calculation will simply factor that in. So it's just simple. It's health bar length. So health bar length is equal to, in brackets, we'll write health divided by hd script dot max health. So later on, this max health, originally we had written in our health and damage script. I've just jumped over there. You'll see max health is 100. Later on, we're going to remove that. We're going to allow the max health to be whatever the player selects in their attribute selection. So it's simply going to calculate the health bar length by taking the current health, divide it by the max health, and then multiply that by 100, and that'll give the correct length to display. So close the bracket, times 100, and that's it. So this will give us the correct length for our health bar. So I'll save that. And the next thing that we need to do is to draw all of this. So we'll do that in on GUI. So void on GUI. And before going much further, I'll actually add 2 more variables. So back here, used in defining the StatDisplay box, I'll also add in private float common left and private float common top. So we write common left is equal to screen dot width divided by 2 plus 180, and common top is equal to screen dot height divided by 2 plus 50. So this will help us position it relative to our crosshair. So that's why I've said it'll be 180 to the right of the center of the screen, and it'll be 50 down from the center of the screen. And this will position it nicely relative to the crosshair. And we're not using GUI layout, we're going to actually manually position. So I'll write here in comments, draw a plain box behind the health bar. So draw a plain box behind the health bar. And this box, I'll just jump over to the slide again to just mention what that plain box is. So by plain box, I'm referring to this larger gray box here. So we're going to draw that first. Then we're going to draw a gray bar that's the same size as the health bar, but it'll sit behind. And then we'll draw the health bar on top of that. So when the player's health goes down, it goes less, we'll see that gray box behind, that gray bar behind, and that helps us. It makes it easier for us to understand that the player's health has dropped. So we'll jump back to the script, and we write GUI.box new rect. So common left is the left position, common top position. Its width is box width, and the height is box height. And we won't have any text in it. We set the content to just an empty string, and we close that. Alright, so this will draw that plain box. The next thing that we need to do is to draw the gray box. It's not visible in the PowerPoint slide, but you'll see it when we play and reduce the player's health. There'll be a gray box. We'll draw that first. So I guess I'll write here comment, draw a gray box behind the health bar. And this one is, the code is GUI.box new rect common left is the left position plus padding actually. So common left plus padding. Now the reason for the padding is so that the health bar box, since we're manually positioning everything, if we don't put padding, the health bar will be aligned at the exact edge, the left edge of the box. So it won't look like it's sitting inside it. It'll look like it's sitting on top of it and not lined very well. So we just add a little bit of padding to push it into the box. Plus padding, common top plus padding as well. And we'll set the width to 100. I'll just type there 100. That's the length of this bar. And we'll set health bar height as the height of this box. And an empty string as well. Okay. So the next thing to do will be to draw that actual health bar texture. So we now do GUI dot draw texture. So a new rect, and now the left position is common left plus the gap. Oh, no, not the gap, sorry. The gap is for the numbers that appear. It's padding, so common left plus padding. Common top plus padding. And this for the length, the width of it, so the length of our health bar is going to be health bar length. So health bar length. So this figure here can vary, and that's what will cause our health bar to increase or decrease in size. And the height of it, I'll just bring that to the next line, is health bar height. Okay. And the texture to draw is health text. And close that line. Alright. And I'll put there the comment as well, since I missed that. I'll write there. We're going to draw the health bar and make its length, well, be dependent on the player's current health. So draw the health bar and make its length be dependent on the player's current health. And the best way to understand this bit of code I've written here is for you to actually fiddle around with it, like change numbers, move it around. You could maybe take this bit and put it up here before this bit to understand the drawing order and to understand what all this is. Like you can change the padding and understand then why I've put that there. Okay, but we're not finished there. There's one more thing to do. And that is to place those numbers, the health number to the right of the bar. So we'll write there GUI.label. So GUI.label new rect common left, and this time plus gap. So you'll see here that the gap is much larger than the padding. So gap is 120. So it'll position it beyond the health bar. So the left position will be beyond the health bar. So common left plus gap, then common top plus padding, and then label width and label height is the height. Alright, and in the next line I'll put in the content to display, which is health for display. So you remember this variable here, health for display, which we rounded up. So now we'll display it, and it needs to be a string to display in a label. So we'll just simply do health for display dot to string and the opening closing round bracket. And we can also define the style, so the GUI style, and that style is health style. So the font color will be green and it'll be bold as well. So we can close that, and we have completed what we needed to put in. So we can save our script. It should be ready for use now. We can jump back to Unity and attach the script to the players. So we jump back, go over to our blue player, go to component, scripts, and attach the StatDisplay. And of course we need to also attach that texture. So we just click that, look for our health bar, there it is, and attach the health bar. And do the same for the red player, component, scripts, StatDisplay. And once again, we'll just pick the health bar. Alright, so we can build and run now. So file, build and run. And once again, we'll have 3 copies of the game open, including the editor, and we'll see the effect of getting damaged. So I'll set up a server. I'll go back to our Unity editor, connect to the server, join as a red team player, and go to the other open copy, connect, let's move it a bit, connect as a blue team player. Alright, we're in, and we can see our health bar right there, and we can see that our health is 100. So let me try moving this a bit more. You can see it in the editor, but it's kind of hidden. Let me remove the stats dialog. Okay, let me bring that up again, and let's shoot at the red player from the blue player. So fire away, and you can see straight away that the health drops, and you can see that gray box that we're drawing. You can immediately understand why we're drawing that. So we've drawn that so it looks really obvious that the health has dropped. So when you're actually playing, you're really unlikely to look at the numbers. You'll notice that your health is dropping, and you can see relative to the gray box whether you're in trouble. So let's go ahead and fire away. Just see it rapidly fall. Yeah, okay. So it's working. I'll do the same against the blue player. Fire away a couple shots. Jump back to it, and yeah, we can see it, that it's there. And we can see that our health bar recharges over time as expected, since our health recharges over time, and the overall effect looks pretty nice actually. So we can just disconnect this and exit. So our stat display is working. We can now move on to our final objective, which is to make the health bar appear over players and have their name also appear over their head. We've moved on to our last objective, which is to implement the player label with name and health. So what we'll have is any player that we see in the game, above them we'll see their health bar, and we'll see their name as well. So the player label accesses the health and damage script and retrieves the player's health, and that's how it knows how long the health bar should be. For the name though, the player name script is the one that supplies the name to the player label script, and the player label script then uses that name and draws it above the player. So our first step will be to actually write that player label script. We create a new C# script, call it PlayerLabel, and open it up. And in the summary, I'll type here that this script is attached to the player. This script is attached to the player, and it draws the health bar of players above them. And it draws the health bar of players above them. And we'll have here as well that this script accesses the health and damage script for determining the health bar length. So this script accesses the health and damage script for determining the health bar length. Okay. And while I'm at it, I might as well go to the health and damage script and say here that this script is accessed by the player label script. Okay, and save that. So back in our player label script, I'll put in the variable start and end. So variable start. And we can start typing out our variables. So first one, the comment, this is attached. Well, the health bar texture, so the health bar texture is attached to this in the inspector. And that is public texture health text, not a height text, a health text. And then our next set of variables, so these ones will be used for determining whether that health bar should be drawn above the player and where on the screen it should be. So I'll write that. These are used in determining whether the health bar should be drawn and where on the screen. So these variables are, first of all, private camera, my camera, or yeah, just my camera, private transform, my transform, so private vector. Oh, actually, wait a minute. These variables are just references. So these are just some quick references. So I'll pull them out, just place them here. Now we're actually writing the variables that are used for determining. So private vector 3, world position is equal to new vector 3. Private vector 3 screen position is equal to a new vector 3. Private vector 3 camera relative position is equal to a new vector 3. Private float minimum z is equal to 1.5f. And while I'm at it, I'll just write here the comment. Quick references. Alright, now we'll have another bunch of variables. And these ones are used to define that health bar. So we'll have here, so the comment. These variables are used in defining the health bar. And they are private int label top is equal to 18. Private int label width is equal to 110. Private int label height is equal to 15. Private int bar top is equal to 1. Private int health bar height is equal to 5. Private int health bar left is equal to 110. Private float health bar length, private float adjustment is equal to 1. And then finally we'll have here used in displaying the player's name, a new comment, used in displaying the player's name, and they are public. I'll scroll down a bit. Public string player name and private GUI style my style is equal to a new GUI style. Alright, so that's our variables, quite a few of them. Mostly they're just very fiddly kinds used to define the positioning of this and that. So let's get into actually writing some code. So in our start function, I'll just first move this down. Alright, I'll save what we've done so far and then move to our start function. I'll write the comment. Now this script, it's only going to run for other player characters. So the network, if network view.isMine, this time we're not doing is true, we're going to do is false. If it's true, then we disable the script. So this script will only run for the other player characters. So this script will only run for the other player characters. We don't need a health bar being drawn above our own player. So we don't need a health bar being drawn above our own player in our game. So right here, if network view dot isMine is false, then my transform is equal to transform. My camera is equal to camera dot main, and I'll write here the comment that the font color of the GUI style, it depends on which team the player is on. So that's why I'm just using one GUI style, and I'll just simply say if the player is on the red team, then the text that appears above their head showing their name will be red in color. If they're in the blue team, then the text appearing above them will be in a blue color. So right here the comment, the font color of the GUI style depends on which team the player is on. So if my transform dot tag, oh, and by the way, this is the easy way to check which team the player is on. So if my transform dot tag is equal to blue team, then obviously the player is on the blue team. So then my style dot normal dot text color is equal to color dot blue. And if my transform dot tag is red, so is equal to red team, then my style dot normal dot text color is equal to color dot red. So that sorts out the color of it, but there's more to it than that. I'll also say my style dot font size is equal to 12, and my style dot font style is equal to font style dot bold. And more than that, we'll also allow, so in case some player has a long name, our label width is just 110 pixels. Maybe it's not big enough. If it isn't, then allow that text to spill out of the bounds of that label. So we say here, I'll just write a comment, allow the text to extend beyond the width of the label. So allow the text to extend beyond the width of the label. So my style dot clipping is equal to text clipping dot overflow. Okay. Now that sorts that. So outside of the if statement within the start function, we'll now put in else enabled is equal to false. So if this is running on our character in our game, then this script won't run. But for all the other players, it'll run. So that way we can see the health bar and their name above their player character. So I'll say what we've done so far. The next thing will be to fill out code in our update function. Then later we'll have our onGUI function to actually draw that. So let's move over to update. And in our update, the first thing that we need to do is to determine whether that player is the other players in the game, whether they are in front of our player or are they behind. The health bar should only be drawn if they are in front of our player. And it's a very important check because it's possible that even if you're not looking, if you didn't do the check, then even when you're not looking at a player, when they're exactly behind you, you'll see their health bar and their name in front of you. It's pretty odd. So first of all, capture whether the player is in front or behind the camera. So we'll use here camera relative position. So camera relative position is equal to my camera dot transform dot inverse transform point. So inverse transform point my transform dot position. Okay. So we'll write the next thing is access, the player's health and damage script to figure out how much health they have. So for the health bar, so access the player's health and damage script to figure out how long the health bar should be. Now, rather than, I was just thinking of actually just typing out the code and just creating these little local variables for the update function and constantly accessing them. It might be a bit more efficient to actually create some new variables up here for since we're going to be accessing the health and damage script and accessing the trigger game object of the player that this script is attached to. So I'll go back up here and say private trigger transform. So private transform trigger transform and private health and damage HD script. And just like we had done earlier for StatDisplay, we had here access the health and damage script. I think I'll just copy paste that. So just copy from our StatDisplay script, access this bit accessing it. So copy. Let's go over to our PlayerLabel and maybe just around here before we define the GUI style. Yeah, okay. So now we have set up the reference to to the trigger transform and to the health and damage script. So now we can come back here, and I'll change the comment now. So I'll change it to just figure out how long the health bar should be. So figure out how long the health bar should be. And to avoid a mathematical error, we'll set the health bar to 1 if the player's health falls below 0. So to avoid a mathematical error, set the health bar length to 1 if the player's health falls below 1. So falls below 1. Okay. Now, so we'll do here the check. If HD script dot my health is less than 1, then health bar length is equal to 1. So if HD script dot my health is greater than or equal to 1, then health bar length is equal to HD script dot my health divided by HD script dot max health times by 100. Okay. So that'll calculate the length of the health bar. So we're done with our update function. I just saved there. And now we need to draw that health bar of the players. So we'll go to void. We'll write void on GUI. I'll write the comment that we should only display the player's name if they are in front of the camera, and also the player should be in front of the camera by a certain amount, by minimum Z, that much distance away from us. So only display the player's name if they are in front, so if they are in front of the camera, and also the player should be in front of the camera by at least minimum Z. Because when a player gets really close to us, would have to look, well, if they're standing right next to us, then their player label would be, it would just be out of the screen anyway. There's no need to draw it even. So if camera relative position dot Z is greater than minimum Z, then we'll write the comment, set the world position to be just a bit above the player. So set the world position to be just a bit above the player, because we want to draw the label above the player. So we're going to pick a position that's above the player, and then we're going to convert this position to a screen position, and then we're going to draw the health bar at that screen position. And another thing I probably should have mentioned is about the inverse transform point, what that's actually doing. So what it's doing is it's, I guess, capturing the position of the player that this script is attached to relative to the camera. So it's converting from the script reference. It mentions that it's converting from a world space to a local space. So I guess by putting my transform.position there, we're able to figure out whether the we can figure out, yeah, okay, we can figure out, so instead of the global, X, Y, Z, it's now we're taking the new point of reference as the camera instead of the origin of the map, which would be like 0, 0, 0. So now the origin you could think of is the camera. And by doing this, we then get the position of this player relative to the camera. So based on that, we know then if like the Z position is positive from this result, then that means they're in front of our player. If the Z position is negative, then that means that they're behind our player. So the next thing that we need to do is go back to our onGUI function. And in it, we'll write here world position is equal to a new vector 3. So new vector 3, my transform dot position dot x. So we keep the same x position. We're going to use a different y position. So my transform dot position dot y plus the adjustment. So adjustment was just 1 pixel. So it's just adjusted up by 1 pixel. Well, sorry, not 1 pixel, sorry. It's just calculating the world position. So it's 1 unit. So sorry. So the adjustment is my transform.position.y plus 1 unit, 1 meter above the player. And on the next line, I'll just put in my transform.position .z. Okay. Then next, we need to convert that world position to a screen position. So convert the world position to a point on the screen. Okay. So screen position is equal to my camera dot world to screen point. So world to screen point, that's the one, world to screen point. And which position should be changed to a position on the screen? It's this vector 3 here, world position. Okay. So we've done that. Now that we've got the position that we need to draw our health bar at, we'll draw it. So draw the health bar and the gray bar behind it. So draw the health bar and the gray bar behind it. So the first thing to draw is that gray bar. So we'll write here GUI.box new rect screen position.x minus health bar left divided by 2 screen position. Well, sorry, I'd first put in screen.height. Yeah, screen.height minus screen.position screen.position.y minus bar top. It's very fiddly, this sort of stuff, the actual defining where it should be drawn, so it's easy to make a mistake. So what am I saying here? I'm saying I'm capturing the whole screen height. Then I'm saying bump it up by screen position.y and again by bar top. Okay, so it's just a variable that I'd made, and bar top is equal to 1 unit, 1 pixel. And next we need to define the width of this gray bar, and the width is simply 100. And next the height of it, which is health bar height. And it won't have anything, it'll just be an empty string. That'll make the gray bar show. And that does that line. Oh, no, just made a small mistake there. Just put the semicolon. That's better. Now we need to draw the texture. So GUI.draw texture. New rect. Screen position.x minus health bar left divided by 2. So that's our left position. Then for our Y position, we have screen dot height, just like above, screen dot height minus screen position Y. So minus screen position dot Y minus bar top. And on the next line, the width, health bar length. So health bar length. And the height is health bar height. Okay. Oh, and I need to just close that off again. Okay. And we can save that. So we can go over to Unity and just check out what we've done so far. And, well, oh, wait a minute. Looks like we have an error. So draw texture takes 1 argument. Okay, let's go back there. All right, and yeah, that's a bit silly. I forgot to say what texture to draw. So it's health text. Okay. Now I can just save that. All right, now it should be okay. So we jump back to Unity. It should disappear. Now what's this about PlayerLabel.label height is assigned, but it's never used. Alright, because we haven't yet actually drawn, see, we're only drawing the health bar so far. We haven't drawn the name of the player above them, because first of all we need the player name script to supply the name. So we'll get to that afterwards, but first let's just see what the health bar looks like. We go to our players, so our player blue and our player red, and we attach our new script, so component scripts, and it's PlayerLabel. And we attach the texture as well, which is the same texture, that health bar texture. And we do the same thing for the red player. So component scripts, PlayerLabel, and we assign a texture. All right. So we can now build and run. I'll hit play. And try this time setting up a server in Unity. So set up a server. Let's connect. And we join as a red team player. Okay. And we can see that the health bar is above the player, which is good. Actually, why not? Let's just connect with another player as well. So I have another player. I'll connect. Connect as a blue team player. And we can see that the red team player has a health bar. Let's shoot at them, see what happens. All right, and you can see that the health bar appears above their head. If we move really close to them, it no longer displays. We have to move away from them, so it disappears when we get really close, which is sensible. And yeah, we can see that it's working. It charges up like we'd expect, which is good news. I'll jump over to the other player. You can see on the server that they're both appearing on top of each other since they're next to each other. And let's just jump over here and we can see the blue player's health bar. All right. Okay, so now we need to do the next bit, which is to have the player name script supply the name to the PlayerLabel script, and then draw the name of the player as well. So that'll be the next step. We're on to our last step, which is to edit the player name script. Alright, from within MonoDevelop, we can open up the player name script, and we'll just make a small change to this. So down in the update my name everywhere RPC, we'll now add a little bit more code that will access the PlayerLabel script and supply the player name. So we'll have here the comment, supply the PlayerLabel script with the player's name. So supply the PlayerLabel script with the player's name, and the code for that will be PlayerLabel, and I'll call the variable I'll call it label script is equal to transform.getComponent. So we'll access that PlayerLabel script, and the component to get is PlayerLabel label script dot player name is equal to p name. So that's pretty simple, and that's it. We've supplied the name. And back up here in the comments, I'll just write that this script accesses the PlayerLabel script. This script accesses the PlayerLabel script to supply it with the player's name. Alright, and I'll save this script, and I'll just jump back to the PlayerLabel script and see, okay, it needs also the same comment. So this script is accessed by the player name script. Alright, and I can save that. Now, the next thing we need to do, so we've been supplied with the player name, now we need to make use of it. We need to draw it, and we're above the health bar. So we go back down to our onGUI function, and we start typing out I'll put the comment, draw the player's name above them. So draw the player's name above them, and the code is GUI.label new rect screen position.x minus label width divided by 2, and then that's the left. I'll go down to the next line. So for the top, it's screen.height. So screen.height minus screen position.y minus label top. Okay, so that's the top position. Next, for the width, it's simply label width. And for the height, label height. And what text should be displayed in there? It should be player name, the name of the player. And we'll also give it, oh, I should have closed off the rect at that moment, so I closed it off. Now I've put the GUI content, the player name, and now the style as well. And the style is my style. So depending which team the player is on, the font color will be different. Okay. And that's it. So I'll save that, and it will draw. Now there's something I'll show you as well. I'll show you an odd error that appears only for this script, and it only appears once when we, instead of, if we have the server as another player and we connect in the editor, you'll see a small little error pop up. It's not a significant one, but we will remove that. I'll show you how to, but first let's jump to Unity and build and run. So you can see the warning messages don't appear because we're making use of those variables now. So build and run. Okay, play. I'll set up a server. I'll connect to the server in the editor. Join as a red team player. And just before I get to that, let's just open this up. And you can see the player's name above their health bar. But more importantly now, you'll see this error has appeared here. It's saying some null reference exception, and it's appeared once and it's not appearing any more times. So we can go over to it, and it's having some sort of a problem here. Now the fix is to actually say if network view.isMine is false as well within the update function. I can't explain why that's the case. I'm not sure. All I know is by doing that, it's for some reason it seems like this bit of code in the update function runs once before the script is disabled. So in that case, I'll just add the fix. So I'll just shut down the server, Back in Unity, I'll close it down. And back in the script, I'll put in here, I'll indent all of this and say that if network view dot isMine is false, then all this code runs. Otherwise it doesn't. And this is the only script where we'll have this odd bit of line here, this odd check in here. So it's inefficient having it here in the update function as well, but it removes that error. So if we jump back, clear it. And actually I've had a bit of an idea. Maybe if I use the awake function, so void, because it's the first function, so void awake. And within the awake function, I'll try, can I do that? Yeah, why not? Let's just try grabbing everything that's in the start function, cutting it out, placing it in the awake function. Let's just comment this out and see what happens. Save that. And let's go over to Unity and let's build and run and see the effect. Does that error appear again? So hit play. Alright, let's set up a server. Now let's connect as a player. And no, it doesn't, which is good news. So that means by placing it in the awake function, so that means that that bit of code in the update function was managing to run just once on our player when it shouldn't be. It should never be running. So it managed to run just once, and because of that, a null reference error got thrown up. So by putting it in awake, this if network view.isMine check, it's now fixed that issue. So let me just jump back. Let's see that it's all displaying correctly. It is. So I'll just close that, and I'll just go ahead and just clean up the code here. I'll get rid of the start function, and I'll get rid of what I had just done there. Remove the indent. Alright, and save what we've done. That looks good. Okay, so our scripts are done. So I'll go over to File, Build and Run. And I'll launch another copy as well. With this one, I'll set up a server. So File, Setup Server. And then next I'll launch another copy. Alright, so with my other copy, I'll connect as a red team player. And back in the editor, I'll connect as let's try a red team player as well. And I don't see any error appearing. Like, we can see the player's label above their head. And from the other player, we can see the same as well. So let's disconnect with this one. Oh, I didn't mean to exit there. I just meant to reconnect and pick another player. So I'll just relaunch that. Okay, now I'll pick a blue team player. And let's see how that looks. So back here, turn around, and there's our blue team player with the correct color above their head. Their name is displayed. So that's looking pretty good. We've more or less finished this video actually. So we've done quite a bit in this video. We started out by setting up the player respawn system. So if I go ahead and destroy the player, they got destroyed. We head over here, there's a respawn button. The player can click that to respawn back into the game. We then put in the player's crosshair so that we can actually aim correctly. And we then also implemented the HUD. So we have, well, the stat display. So we have our health bar being drawn there. And as the player's health changes, that also updates. And finally, we went ahead and put the player label above their head, which displays their health and the name of that player. And the name, depending which team they are on, it's either a blue color or a red color. And then finally, we fixed some very odd little problem with a line of code running when it really shouldn't have been, or seemingly shouldn't have. So we fixed that by placing the start function code in the PlayerLabel script into the awake function instead. So that way the if network view.isMine is false check is the very first thing that happens. So the script is just disabled before the update function has any chance of running. So that has been I find this video, the content of this one, to be pretty interesting. I hope it helped you out. And thank you for watching. And in the next video, it'll be even more interesting because in that video, we'll be implementing our player communications. So our players will be able to send simple chat messages to other players, well, to everyone else. And we'll also have a combat window that shows, which player destroyed which player. So I'll see you in the next video.